power into the hands of a central executive. In the past week, things have gotten so bad that even Sean Hannity, a relatively reasonable host of both radio talk shows and television talk show on the Fox network, basically said that it's conceivable now that states might realistically look at the possibility of secession. In fact, said that for states to leave the Union if the federal government continues its radicalized, abusive pattern might be a viable option. Are we really to the point that even Sean Hannity, who, like I've said before, is usually pretty moderate, pretty low-key, honestly believes it's come to real talk of secession instead of just these petitions that got put up on the White House website? Also this past week, I believe it was last Thursday's broadcast of MSNBC's The Last Word, being hosted by Lawrence McDonald, where the word came out that the pastor of the Passion City Church of Atlanta had lost his opportunity to give the benediction at the inaugural ceremonies. The reason? Well, evidently, in the past, he's delivered anti-gay sermons. O'Donnell actually raised the ire of a lot of Christians by saying that the Bible shouldn't have any role in the upcoming Inauguration Day ceremonies anyway. Basically, he said that the quickest way to get thrown out of having any part of it is to quote from the Bible. And he continued to say that basically all that the pastor did to get knocked out of this year's ceremony was to give a sermon about the gay lifestyle. Basically, at 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the Presidential Inaugural Committee announced that this gentleman would be giving the benediction. One day later, he suddenly becomes persona non grata. He's not going to be allowed to participate in the swearing in, although questionable whether this even should be going on, given the fact that this election was obviously stolen. You can't have somebody who's given an anti-gay message when the president who's being sworn in, or in this case the occupier, is in favor of gay rights, including the so-called progressive word, marriage equality. Something to keep in mind, though, those of you who want to get all fired up and think that, yay, this is great, President standing up for this, blah, 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 blah. Well, the occupier was against gay marriage before he was for gay marriage. And most of the activists in the community should well remember that. O'Donnell was quoted as saying, "The truth is that homosexuality is a sin in the Bible." The sermons that were in question cited Leviticus 18:22 and 1 Corinthians 9:10, which warn against committing sexual immorality. He went on to say that we will ensure that whomever delivers the benediction rejects the same parts of the Bible that, quote, President Obama rejects and most Democrats reject, even though every word of the Bible is the Word of God. O'Donnell continued to say, as I've pointed out, no one accepts all of the teachings of the Bible. No one. Still, the president, following one of our most absurdist traditions in the government that invented the separation of church and state, will put his hand on this book filled with things he does not believe, filled with things that no one in the United States of America believes, and with his hand on this book, he will recite the oath of office. O'Donnell also offered an unlikely alternative to the Bible for swearing-in ceremonies, one of the president's daughters. Quote, "Now, wouldn't it be better if the president's hand was on the shoulder of one of his daughters, suggesting that he was honoring the oath of office as much as he honors Sasha or Malaya?" Well, most of the ire on these comments had come from the fact that he said that no one in America accepts it all. Yeah, we all have a tradition of kind of ignoring the things that we want to ignore. But to say that nobody believes all the words in the Bible is an asinine overstatement. But he did get one thing right, and that is that obviously taking an oath on a book that you have little to no faith or belief in is all the more reason why that oath can't be taken seriously. Might help explain why he hasn't fulfilled that oath to protect the Constitution from enemies, foreign, domestic, and even in his own office. At any rate, it just goes to show the state that we're in. This nation needs a reemergence of a moral fiber, as well as standing up to the oppression. The soft tyranny that we have been under for a while now is swiftly starting to swing to a much firmer version of tyranny. We've got to stop that momentum and bring back personal liberty. If we don't do it, ladies and gentlemen, nobody else is going to do it for us. There's plenty of folks waiting in the wings hoping that these guys succeed because they're tired of us being so much more successful than they are, simply because we have put personal liberty at the forefront. We as a nation, we as America, have put individual liberty at the forefront, and that creates opportunity. Opportunity is not a guarantee of success. Opportunity is a guarantee that you will have the same chances to go out and do something under the same situations. You can be just as successful or even more so. Your hard work, your effort. You don't have to be born rich to become rich in this nation. I'll grant you, it helps if you start out with more to end up with more. And it's hard. It's harder than ever to step forward, which is part of how these folks on the left are able to hook so many people into this misconception that all we have to do in order to be better is to take from those nasty, mean, rich people, and we'll just give it to you. How much of that has made its way down? I spent time this past week in the doctor's office, and you know what I heard? People still actually arguing the merits of so-called Obamacare, when the proof that their bills and their deductibles and their insurance premiums right there. The conversation was taking place in the doctor's office, and trained medical professionals told them flat out what the problem was, and there were still people arguing. Obamacare is taking quality health care away from more people, not giving it to more people. They want control, not to help. It's sad. It's ridiculous, but it's true. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to tonight's main topic, let's go ahead, take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Come back and join us right after. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Tap Into the Truth, and now we're going to start talking about the very real question that's been raised recently, and that is, do the Castro brothers currently control Venezuela? Has Hugo Chavez been a puppet? Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't put much stock into a story like this, except for the fact that what we've had occur since Hugo's health took a major turn for the worse. He has cancer and went to Cuba for medical care. He's rarely been seen, and there's a lot of Cubans actually on the ground helping to run things. This story basically came to light over the past couple of weeks as tensions arose between the current government, the Chavez loyalists, and the opposition folks in a legal battle over whether or not the swearing-in ceremony for Hugo to take his next turn at being the unquestioned dictator of Venezuela, whether it was legal for it to be postponed, whether it was legal for them to do it in Cuba from the hospital bed. All this legal wrangling, it came to an end late last week when the Venezuelan Supreme Court decided that it could be postponed. But here's the thing. A former U.S. ambassador to Venezuela, in an interview with Newsmax, basically said that whoever replaces the ailing Venezuelan president is not going to be good for the United States, which has seen its influence in Latin America drop to an all-time low under President Obama. And again, as often the case, I remind you, if I refer to him as president, it is only because I am quoting somebody or quoting an article. He is, to me, forever the occupier. He is not our president. At any rate, the former ambassador also asserts that Cuba's Castro brothers have been running Venezuela through the, quote, puppet Chavez in recent years, and Cuban control of the country is likely to continue following Chavez's death. This gentleman happened to have been appointed ambassador to South American nation during the Ronald Reagan administration and served from 1986 to 1989. He's also served as Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs and was a foreign policy advisor to the John McCain campaign during the 2008 presidential efforts. Chavez is currently still hospitalized in Cuba after he's had surgery for cancer. His government announced earlier in this week that he will not be present at the swearing-in for the next presidential term, which was scheduled to take place back on Thursday. In an exclusive interview with the Newsmax TV branch, the former government employee, the former ambassador, was asked what's likely to happen if Chavez is not in Venezuela on Thursday. Well, according to the Venezuelan constitutional lawyers, if Chavez is not in Venezuela by Thursday to be sworn in, he cannot be sworn in. However, what the ruling party is trying to do is simply violate the Constitution by sending a delegation from the Supreme Court to Havana to swear in Chavez in the hospital room where he's currently dead or dying, and perhaps in very good health, but nobody knows. And that is kind of the tricky question there, ladies and gentlemen. Nobody knows what's going on because nobody's heard from Chavez since he's had complications. Alternatively, another faction of the government is saying that Chavez does not have to be sworn in because he's already the president. So he'll just continue being the president. Either way, it's a violation of the Constitution, and it's indicative of the lack of respect that the Chavez government has had for the people and the laws of Venezuela ever since he came into power 14 years ago. The Venezuelan vice president and the National Assembly president are running the country in Chavez's absence and are leading candidates to replace Chavez after his death. But the two men are distinctions with lack of difference, according to the former ambassador. It says that one's not very charismatic and the other one isn't either. One came up through the ranks of the labor movement. He's far to the left.